Gopinath Puridam ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Yamuna Mayi ki jai, Ganga Mayi ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13, Text 25. Niśamya te ghargharitam sva-kheda kṣayiṣṇu māyāmaya-sūkarasya janaḥ tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas te tribhiḥ pavitrair munayaḥ agṛṇan sma niśamya te ghargharitam sva-kheda kṣayiṣṇu māyāmaya-sūkarasya janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas te tribhiḥ pavitrair munayo gṛṇan sma niśamya te ghargaritam sva-kheda kṣayiṣṇu māyāmaya-sūkarasya janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas te tribhiḥ pavitrair munayo gṛṇan sma niśamya te ghargharitam sva-kheda kṣayiṣṇu māyāmaya-sūkarasya janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas te tribhiḥ pavitrair munayo gṛṇan sma niśamya te ghargharitam sva-kheda māyāmaya-sūkarasya janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas te munayo gṛṇan sma sva-kheda janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas te
niśamya te ghargharitam sva-kheda
sva-kheda
kṣayiṣṇu
sūkarasya
janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas te tribhiḥ pavitrair munayo gṛṇan sma
gṛṇan sma sva-kheda kṣayiṣṇu janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas te
tribhiḥ pavitrair munayo gṛṇan niśamyate ghargharitam sva-kheda niśamyate ghargharitam sva-kheda kṣayiṣṇu māyāmaya-sūkarasya kṣayiṣṇu māyāmaya-sūkarasya janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas pavitrair munayo gṛṇan tribhiḥ pavitrair
munayo gṛṇan
niśamyate ghargharitam sva-kheda niśamyate
ghargharitam sva-kheda
kṣayiṣṇu māyāmaya-sūkarasya kṣayiṣṇu
māyāmaya-sūkarasya
janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas
nivāsinas
tribhiḥ pavitrair munayo gṛṇan
munayo gṛṇan Mataji? Niśamyate ghargharitam sva-kheda kṣayiṣṇu māyāmaya-sūkarasya janas-tapaḥ-satya-nivāsinas munayo gṛṇan. Okay, the word for word. Are you doing the TV? I'm sending you this video just in case we use it. Niśamya, just after hearing. Te, those. Ghargharitam, the tumultuous sound. Sva-kheda, personal lamentation. Kṣayiṣṇu, destroying. Māyā-maya, all-merciful. Sūkarasya, of Lord Boar. Janaḥ, the Janaloka planet. Tapaḥ, the Tapoloka planet. Satya, the Satyaloka planet. Nivāsinaḥ, residents. Te, all of them. Tribhiḥ, from the three Vedas. Pavitrair, by the all-auspicious mantras. Munayaḥ, great thinkers and sages. agṛṇan, chanted. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When the great sages and thinkers who are residents of Janaloka, Tapoloka and Satyaloka heard the tumultuous voice of Lord Boar, which was the all-auspicious sound of the all-merciful Lord, they chanted auspicious chants from the three Vedas. Purport. The word māyā-maya is very significant in this verse. Maya means mercy, specific knowledge, and also illusion. Therefore, Lord Boar is everything. He is merciful, He is all knowledge, and He is illusion also. The sound which He vibrated as the Boar incarnation was answered by the Vedic hymns of the great sages in the planets Janaloka, Tapoloka, and Satyaloka. The highest intellectual and pious living entities in those planets and when they heard the extraordinary voice of Lord Boar, they could understand that the specific sound was vibrated by the Lord and no one else. Therefore, they replied by praying to the Lord with Vedic hymns. The earth planet was submerged in the mire, but on hearing the sound of the Lord, the inhabitants of the higher planets were all jubilant, because they knew that the Lord was there to deliver the earth. Therefore Brahma and all the sages, such as Bhrigu, Brahma's other sons, and learned Brahmanas were enlivened, and they concertedly joined in praising the Lord with the transcendental vibrations of the Vedic hymns. The most important is the Brihad Naradiya Purana verse, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadah Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utav Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Dhanavirga Swami Niti Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. So, we're hearing about the demigods, again hearing this transcendental sound of Lord Boar. Actually, the residents of Janaloka, Tapoloka and Satyaloka. And there's living entities on all planets of the universe, all over the universe. There's innumerable living entities in 8,400,000 different species of life. And it's understood that one can be transferred to any of their planets and live in those species of life in a suitable body for that planet, but not by some mechanical means, which can easily break and fail, but by specific processes given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. In the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 9, text 25, Krishna explains, Yanti deva vrata devan, pitrin yanti pitri vrataha, bhutani yanti bhuteja, yanti madhyajino pimam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. And those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me. So by performing specific processes of worship, people can be transferred to the planets of those different living entities. There was one reporter that spoke with Srila Prabhupada in 1968 about the proposed moon landing. At this point, they had only supposedly sent a rocket ship that orbited near the moon. And he was asking Srila Prabhupada about how one can go to the moon. And Srila Prabhupada explained that it's impossible to go to any of these other planets in this present body. And he was explaining first a very easy to understand example that just like when we go to any other country, you have to do so many things to check into that country. There's some customs office, you have your passport, you have all sorts of verifications. They don't just let you walk in. They say, why are you here? So how is it that someone will go to a planet that we understand from all of the Vedic literature is inhabited by so many living entities, and they're even more intelligent and powerful than human beings? How are they just going to let them stroll into there? And then the other point, that it's a different planet, so it has a different composition of different elements. So you need a different kind of body to go there. For example, the temperature may be different, whatever people breathe may be different, how the bodies work may be different. So the reporter was asking him if the spacesuits that the scientists now have would do, and he was saying this spacesuit isn't sufficient, you'll need a better one. So and he also explained that it's by pious activities that one can go to these planets, and by worshiping these specific personalities, not by vicious activities. One who's always engaged in vicious activities or sinful activities can't go there. And the reporter didn't even understand that at first. He was saying, vicious? He's trying to figure it out, what in the world that even meant. So by worshiping them, one can go there. I keep thinking of it when I'm thinking of this verse about worshiping different living entities. In the material world, the conditioned souls come here to try to get worshipped like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we saw yesterday during the Harinam, we're all going in this ecstatic procession worshiping Krishna. And someone walked by and he had this sign that said, "Follow me." And it just seemed like the normal position of the conditioned soul in the material world, because he came by the Harinam, and in this high-pitched voice, he saw all of us and he said, "Follow me, follow me," instead of trying to follow Krishna.
and follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, chanting the holy names. He was yelling at us to follow him, but no one wanted to because he's not followable. But Krishna is followable by all living entities. And he makes that very apparent through his pastimes that he displays when he comes to this material world, and just through the philosophy that he explains in the Bhagavad Gita and what's explained by his devotees in all of the Vedic texts. So about these different planets that we are hearing about, Janaloka, Tapoloka, and Satyaloka, there's a text and purport explaining this in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 23, Text 9. I'll just go right to the purport. If you go to the second sentence, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur estimates that Dhruvaloka, the pole star, is 3,800,000 yojanas above the sun. Also, a yojana is equal to 8 miles. Above Dhruvaloka by 10 million yojanas is Maharloka. Above Maharloka by 20 million yojanas is Janaloka. Above Janaloka by 80 million yojanas is Tapoloka. And above Tapoloka by 120 million yojanas is Satyaloka. So these planets are even above Dhruvaloka, which Dhruva Maharaj was given because he's a great devotee of the Lord. And he was also given the benediction that that planet would not be destroyed during the devastation of the universe. It's like a spiritual planet, as far as I understand, similar to like a Vaikuntha planet. But these Janaloka, Tapoloka, and Satyaloka, they're even above Dhruvaloka. So the living entities who are there must be extremely qualified and extremely pure. But we see in other purports in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada explains that the living entities who are there, even they still have material impurities, which they have to get rid of by taking to the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead if they want to be further elevated past the material world and into the spiritual world. And continuing in the purport, thus the distance from the sun to Satyaloka is 233,800,000 yojanas, or 1,870,400,000 miles. The Vaikuntha planets begin 26,200,000 yojanas, 209,600,000 miles above Satyaloka. Thus, the Vishnu Purana describes that the covering of the universe is 260 million yojanas, or 2,080,000,000 miles away from the sun. So did everybody catch all of that? The point that was being made is that the Vishnu Purana gives the same calculation, that the spiritual world, or the covering of the material world, is this many yojanas, 260 million yojanas, above where the sun is. Then you get the covering of the universe, and then above that there's Vaikuntha planets. The distance from the sun to the earth is 100,000 yojanas, and below the earth by 70,000 yojanas are the 7 lower planetary systems called Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala. Below these lower planets by 30,000 yojanas, Sheshanaga is lying on the Garbhodaka ocean. That ocean is 249,800,000 yojanas deep. Thus, the total diameter of the universe is approximately 500 million yojanas, or 4 billion miles. So all of these calculations are given throughout the Bhagavatam and throughout the Vedic literature, and Srila Prabhupada also explains it very clearly. There's no guesswork. It's not just randomly changing that maybe the universe is 2 billion miles big, and then later, a few years later, they say, now we're more advanced, and we've discovered actually the universe is unlimitedly big and keeps growing. And then a few years later, they say, actually, now we're even more advanced. We discovered that the universe is much smaller. It's only 1 million miles. No, for eternity, the Vedic knowledge has given the absolute truth, unchanging. So you get one figure, and it stays the same. We're not so advanced that we have to change it and say that we're incorrect every couple of years. But that's a common flaw that we see with modern science. And also in the Mood and Mission of Srila Prabhupada, there's a whole section talking about the modern atheistic form of science. Actually, it's a really big section. It's like a whole chunk of the second volume, maybe like an eighth of it, or about an eighth of the book. And in there it's explained that Srila Prabhupada, he wasn't just attacking science in a dogmatic way, saying, okay, all science is bogus, just believe me or just believe this. But he was specifically pointing out in a very logical fashion that the cheating science is the problem. When scientists want to make some claim without any proof and then say, okay, because I'm a science, it should be trusted. So, or because I'm a scientist. Like you see many different articles, videos, news reports, then they say, scientists now say this, but there's no proof given for why they say it. So these planets are described with their different distances, and we understand that actually there's living entities on all of them. That's given in the Vedas, not just that we're on one rock floating in space and it's the only one that happens to have life on it. And Srila Prabhupada gives many nice points to prove this. Krishna also gives good points to prove this. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, text 13, we hear about how the moon actually supplies life to vegetation throughout the whole universe. Krishna is explaining, I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So the purport's really interesting, explaining how Krishna is the one holding up all of the planets. Just like if someone has a handful of dust, they can hold it there, but as soon as they let it go, it all falls to the ground. So by Krishna's potency, he's holding all of the planets in orbit. And if you scroll down in the purport here, similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word rasatmaka is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon. So, Chandra, the personality in charge of the moon, he's also in charge of making all of these vegetables tasty. So it seems strange that the moon, when people say we've gone to it and there's only rocks, it seems strange that there's only rocks on the place that's supplying all of the vegetation, or life to all the vegetation. There's a text and purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, chapter 4, verse 6. Tabyam nidra yamanam stan upalabhya kurudvaha rajo vacha mahan somo manyum prashamayan iva. My dear King Parikshit, when Soma, the king of the trees and predominating deity of the moon, saw the fire and wind burning all the trees to ashes, he felt great sympathy, because he is the maintainer of all herbs and trees. To appease the anger of the Prachetas, Soma spoke as follows. Purport. It is understood from this verse that the predominating deity of the moon is the maintainer of all the trees and plants throughout the universe. It is due to the moonshine that trees and plants grow very luxuriantly. Therefore, how can we accept the so-called scientists whose moon expeditions have informed us that there are no trees or vegetation on the moon? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Somo vriksha dishtata saeva vrikshanam raja. Soma, the predominating deity of the moon, is the king of all vegetation. How can we believe that the maintainer of vegetation has no vegetation on his own planet? It's pretty straightforward. But all the pictures we see, the moon just looks like a dusty rock. So it's pretty clear through Vedic evidence that something is a little bit off about the claims of many scientists. And Srila Prabhupada spoke about this often with different reporters. So there was the one reporter I mentioned earlier who came before the moon landing actually happened, and he asked Srila Prabhupada in 1968, if someone is able to land on the moon, will that, shake the faith of your followers or throw your movement off? And Srila Prabhupada said no, because it's impossible. He kept giving that statement. And later, that same reporter, or actually, before that, that reporter typed up an article explaining what Srila Prabhupada had to say to him, and he summarizes it pretty nicely, so I can read it here. It's called "Swami Says People Are Living on the Moon." Here, I'll put it on the screen. He sounds pretty confused in the interview, the reporter, and it comes through in his article. It's asking for a code for the screen this time. Is there something I type in?
It should pop up there.
Okay, here, I'll try it again.
Try it again.
There we go. Make the text bigger. All right. So Swami Says People Are Living on the Moon, from the Los Angeles Times by John Dart. He's the one who interviewed Srila Prabhupada. If astronauts land on the moon, they probably will be opposed by highly intelligent beings who have been living there for 10,000 years. That part he misunderstood a little bit. He was asking Srila Prabhupada I heard from another person that you said some sort of spirits or creatures will be there on the moon. And Srila Prabhupada explained that the living entities on the moon planet live much longer than human beings. He said 10,000 years, and then he said thousands of years. So you're saying the living entities there live for thousands of years, but this guy took it as they settled on the moon 10,000 years ago. So says Swami A.C. Bhaktivedanta, spiritual leader of an attention-getting Indian cult that has grown from a few followers 2.5 years ago to groups of initiates in 10 U.S. and Canadian cities. The 72-year-old guru interviewed Friday at the Los Angeles Temple of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, 1975, La Cienega Boulevard, believes, first of all, that there is only a remote chance that man could land on the moon planet. He actually said it's impossible several times. This guy is really hopeful, though, so he's sticking with it. Claiming that his statements were based on Vedic literature, specifically the Srimad Bhagavatam, Swami Bhaktivedanta said, present spacesuits would have to be improved. Matter of body. To land there, you must have the specific body, he said. With this body, you cannot go there. You have to change it scientifically, spiritually, or otherwise. Granting that an astronaut's spacesuit might provide the right body, the Swami nevertheless maintained that the present spacesuits used by astronauts are not adequate. And Srila Prabhupada explains that as there's many elements, water, fire, air, ether, and subtle elements like the mind, intelligence, and false ego, there's all grades of different planets with these grades of different bodies. So the bodies there have a different proportion of those elements. In the sun planet, he said, there's fiery bodies. The Bhagavad Gita, another holy Vedic book, describes lower, middle, and upper planetary systems, he said. The Earth is in the middle and has beings of average intelligence. The Moon is in the upper category and contains highly intelligent beings, mainly because they've been living so many years. With this body, neither can you land there, nor can you interfere in their business, said the Swami. But if astronauts were successful in landing on the moon, he said, he expects the moon beings to oppose the earthlings. Citing an analogy in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he said, one king wanted to enter the heavenly kingdom and was opposed by the demigods. I think that might be, in the Ramayana, there's that one person who wanted to go and he was forced back down, and he's stuck upside down now. What's his, Trishanku? Yeah, Trishanku, he's stuck upside down now. But by the mercy of Vishwamitra, he has his own heavenly planet. I don't know if everything there is upside down or not, but we know he is still upside down. The Guru also indicated that any advanced civilization would not take kindly to dumb visitors from another planet. Would astronauts or cosmonauts be able to see the moon beings? Almost invisible. They would be almost invisible, he replied. Howard Wheeler, an Ohio State instructor of English and disciple who sat in for the interview, helped Swami here by suggesting that the moon beings might have subtle forms which would not be perceived by Earth residents. The Swami saw no difficulties arising in the Krishna consciousness movement if astronauts make a successful landing and return with nothing untoward happening. The movement, sometimes called the Hare Krishna movement, because of the importance of the chant using the words Hare, Krishna, and Rama, has drawn its early growth from the recent interest in transcendental meditation. So that's there. I thought it was nice that he also ends it with some idea of the Maha Mantra, just like this purport here about the sages on Janaloka, Tapoloka and Satyaloka. So even after the moon landing did happen, Srila Prabhupada still explained that it didn't happen because, one, because it didn't, and two, because we see in the Vedic text that the way that they're describing it with their television show and everything, the moon wouldn't look like that, and the type of equipment they're saying they used wouldn't actually get them there or keep them alive there. And I don't have to get into all of the details of what makes it bogus, the moon landing, but you can see there's so many videos that analyze this in depth. You'll see different stage equipment here. You'll see there's no footprints there, or the flag is waving in the. So many different things are there. And then if you just hear it with kind of a sober mind, any of the broadcasts that were shown at that time, it's obvious that it's just some sort of advertisement or movie or something. Supposedly scientists now still say, and they're making more advanced rockets, but they say we can't make one that can get us to the moon and land us there, because we'd have to have something to fuel it up somewhere out in space. And there's an even better reason Srila Prabhupada gives for why they can't make it there, but I'll get to that one. There's just a short anecdote here where once the moon landing was on TV, Malati Devidasi was explaining being there with Srila Prabhupada while it was going on. One morning, Prabhupada's door was a little bit ajar. Since his door was never open, I was feeling hesitant, almost fearful. Why is his door open? I pushed it a little to look inside, not knowing what to expect. I didn't see anything, but suddenly I heard Srila Prabhupada say, "Malati, come in, we are watching TV." I went in and he said, "We are going to watch them land on the moon." I was supposed to be making breakfast, but I sat down and watched them land on the moon. Immediately afterwards, Prabhupada had the TV turned off and said, "They did not go." He looked at the television and said, "This is an idiot box and it has made idiots of us." So he's not saying it made idiots of us because it proved us wrong or something like this, but because that's the whole point of this kind of propaganda put by the cheating scientists, is just to make an idiot out of everyone, that, okay, the public is so dumb, just believe this and go along with whatever we want. And I heard another memory with Srila Prabhupada where one devotee was explaining sometime later, maybe a few weeks or so, they're reading a newspaper about the moon landing, and a few pages into the newspaper, towards the back of the paper, it says, now that the moon landing was successful, the taxes will go up by this much to help pay for it. And Srila Prabhupada said that is the reason that they went. So, and she explains that this one person was actually swayed by it. This Purushottam Das did cite that as his reason for leaving, because he couldn't understand how Srila Prabhupada could say it didn't happen. He couldn't clear that doubt. On the note of this idiot box making an idiot of us, if you see there's another moon landing that happened recently, which makes you feel like more of an idiot. It's depressing that that a country could look at their citizens as being stupid enough to watch this thing and think okay, this will satisfy them. It's only a few seconds, so I thought I could play it just because it kind of defeats the whole idea of a moon landing without even having to say anything, just by seeing it. Let's see. Can I hand the screen back over to you because it's in your WhatsApp? Does that work? Yeah. You don't need to put the sound on for it either. If you just see it, it's pretty absurd. I can give some description for anyone in the kitchen. So we have a picture of the president there, and he looks like he might be AI generated or something. And then we have like a PlayStation 1 looking clip of some sort of ship, and it didn't land on anything. It was just in the middle of a frame, and now all these people are cheering. And if you look at their expressions, they look like they're acting. And now I can't tell if this is a real picture of the president or some AI picture. He doesn't say anything. Did it say Forbes? First post. So there's some nice news video of the landing. Nothing landed. I don't know. I don't know what that was. So that one doesn't need any further arguments to dispute it. But after the supposed moon landing did happen, the same reporter that interviewed Srila Prabhupada in 1968 came back, and he had another interview with Srila Prabhupada where he was actually you can hear in it, he's happy to be there and pretty satisfied with the interview, especially with Srila Prabhupada's smashing of the so-called gurus, swamis, and incarnations that were causing havoc at that time. And then he comes to the question of the moon. So here, I'll try to put this up there. Let me get it so you can read it. Sorry, it moved the screen once I made the text bigger. Okay, here you go. So this is a really good argument for the moon landing. Okay, the reporter came to the subject of his previous visit, the moon. When I interviewed you perhaps 5 or 6 years ago, it was before there were reports of the astronauts landing on the moon, and I asked you at that time what you thought about it. And you said that, as I recall, that they would not be able to land or explore because spirits or creatures that lived on the moon would not allow it. And I know this is a lot of talk about the moon, but it is there in the Bhagavatam that there's life on all planets, and everyone's being made to believe that, especially with this moon, that there's no life anywhere. All the planets are just dusty rocks, and you can see we went to one of them, we collected some rocks, there's nothing there. And I'll read a little bit in the Mood and Mission of Srila Prabhupada later. But in there, you hear one instruction from Srila Prabhupada where he's saying, the more you can, that you can kick the scientist on these 2 points, that life comes from chemicals is one of their ideas, and we can prove to them that life comes from life. And then the other one is that this moon landing never happened. So he said these 2 points you should really bother them about, because their whole cheating philosophy is based on these 2 things. The reports, of course, said that indeed people did land and explore and return safely. I understood you have further thoughts about that. At this point, the devotees all broke out laughing. And you've even written a lot about it. I wonder if you could tell me, not at great length perhaps, but what your belief about those events is. 1 second, let me move this thing. I wonder if you could tell me, not a great... Okay. Prabhupada happily obliged. I don't know if the reporter was present this week or this morning for the class, but Prabhupada preached to him on the days of the week theme. Yes, that question I was discussing the other day. In the common sense, gross sense, that all over the world they accept Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. In this way, Saturday last. So why these arrangement? Sunday first and Monday second. And nobody could reply it. Sometimes people are confused, especially younger people we meet at the colleges, think Monday's first just because that's when the work week and school week starts. But you can still see on every calendar, Sunday first. But as a layman, I can conclude that sun planet is first and the moon planet is next. So if you cannot go to the sun planet, which is 93 million miles away, how you can go to the moon planet within 4 days? Nobody could answer. Can you answer? Well, I don't think it's worth the answer now, but I'm wondering what your response is. But this is the arrangement all over the world. Sunday first, Monday second, then Tuesday. So sun, moon, Mars, Jupiter, in this way, last Saturn. This is the arrangement of the planets, and you can see this in the 5th canto. There's that drawing or diagram of the height or distance of the different planets, showing this these distances. So if this is the arrangement of the planets, moon day next to moon next to sun, and if you cannot go to the sun, how can you go to the moon? The man was becoming a bit perplexed. Do you, in other words, do you believe that astronauts landed somewhere? That is the next question. First of all, whether you actually went to the moon, that is the first question. You have to conclude that you did not, because the sun planet is first, the moon planet is second. You cannot go to the sun planet 93 millions of miles. How can you go to the moon planet? Well, except that, according to our Shastra, the moon planet is above the sun planet, and the distance is 1,600,000 miles. So accepting that the sun is 93 million miles away, then you add another 1,600,000, almost 2 million. It becomes 95 million miles away. So if you go at the speed of 18,000 miles per hour, it takes more than 6 months. So how you go there in 4 days? And you advertise in the paper, now they have reached after 4 days. I saw in a video about the moon, someone made this comment that when this broadcast from the moon to Earth is going on with this TV program, there's a call from the president at that time. I think Nixon was, and that should already throw the whole thing off. That's known as like one of the most distrusted presidents of all time, but for some reason people still believe this. So there's a call from Nixon to the moon, and they're immediately replying back and forth, telling him about it, and he's saying things. And this person in the comments was saying, I'm in Walmart and I can't even like call my friends. How come they're supposed to be having a better connection to the moon in 1970s? So Rameshwar made a point to Srila Prabhupada. They don't accept that the moon is further away. They don't accept. That is another thing. But we have got this information. How we can accept... What was it? Oh, sorry. They don't accept that the moon is further away. And Srila Prabhupada's response. They don't accept. That is another thing. But we have got this information. How we can accept it. By this time, the reporter was having a little trouble following the conversation, so Rameshwar cleared things for him. I said to Prabhupada that the modern man believes that the moon is closer, but Prabhupada said, but our ancient literatures teach that the moon is further away. So since we have that information, how can we accept the version of the modern scientists? Now the reporter was becoming a bit bewildered. It was obvious that for him that the moon landings were a fact. He agreed doubtfully. Prabhupada again came back to his point of common sense observation. Not only that, why this arrangement that Monday and Sunday first, Monday second? The reporter didn't see it as that obvious. Well, that doesn't necessarily speak of distance. Distance may not be, Prabhupada said, but you have to accept the sun planet first, moon planet next. Distance is not the question, Prabhupada told him. Okay, the reporter consented. Why this arrangement, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday? There is some system. The system is just like first, second, third, fourth. So it is naturally concluded the moon planet is next to the sun planet. Clearly not able to follow Prabhupada's line of thought, the reporter tried to bring things back to something he could grasp. So it goes on, but this is a point that Srila Prabhupada caught them on nicely. This, the sun being closer than the moon. It's described in all the Vedas, and then it's still there in this way we describe the weeks. And this reporter was actually pretty pleased with it because he saw that even if he wasn't clearly understanding it, if the reporter wasn't clearly understanding it, still he couldn't, Srila Prabhupada couldn't be messed with. He was very lucidly able to pick apart this claim that they went to the moon. And Srila Prabhupada also gave an instruction to Rameshwar Prabhu that he should print books from the BBT that destroy the claims of atheistic science and then sell those to the temples at a discounted cost price, which is something he didn't give for any of his other books, but just for these ones specifically. And there's a whole section actually dealing with this in the Mood and Mission. But we see that, Srila Prabhupada, he never changed his stance with the moon landing. and just a little more about what he said about it. There's a section in Societal Perspectives and Initiatives called The Moon Hoax. The moon issue clearly stuck in Srila Prabhupada's mind since he spoke about it relatively often. The hoax of the so-called moon landing was, to Srila Prabhupada, indicative of the ignorance and deceit of the scientists. Quote, "The scientists are cheaters because they present so many bogus things in the name of science. They propose going to the moon, but actually they end up cheating the entire public of large sums of money for their experiments. They cannot do anything useful. They are passing as scientists. I call them directly rascals, simply a set of rascals. They have never gone to the moon planet. They do not know what are the different positions of the different planets. Simply, they are cheating people to get a good salary." End quote. Referring to scientists, Srila Prabhupada said, "If we can expose that they never went to the moon, their life will be finished." Although subsequently many persons have exposed serious flaws in the moon landings narrative, at that time, Srila Prabhupada was aware that he was the only man in the world challenging that you have not gone to the moon planet. Quote, "They do not go, and even if they go, they take photographs from millions of miles. What is the value of these things? But people are accepting that, oh, scientific research. Perhaps I am the only man in the world who is protesting." Stating that our Krishna consciousness movement has nothing to do with this moon planet, Srila Prabhupada saw the moon expedition as a useless endeavor, simply wasting time and money. People are trying, very much eager, to see what is there in the moon planet. Most scientists or high-class men consider, but devotees do not go even to kick on this moon planet, not even to pass urine there, because they know what is there, what is the value there. Even if you go there, what advantage do you get? So, modern people, or you could say the scientists who are cheating, they think that this is a good idea to spend millions of dollars to go somewhere and collect a few rocks, but they miss the whole point of life. Labdva sudurlabham idam bahusambhavante manusham artadam anityam api hadiraha tornam yatetana patet anumritu yavan nishreya sayavishaya kalu sarvata syat. That the human form of life, it's not meant for living like the animals, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, but it's very rarely obtained, so one should immediately use it for the highest benefit. And that benefit, these sages who are higher than the moon planet, the ones on Janaloka, Tapoloka, and Satyaloka, they're using their life for that benefit. And how are they doing it? They're glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead with hymns from the Vedas. And Srila Prabhupada explains that the most important is the Brihanaradiya Purana. And that's where we hear that Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva nasteva gatir anyata. That there's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way in this Kali Yuga than chanting the holy name of the Lord. That will give one the topmost benefit. They can get out of this material world altogether, not jump from this planet to that planet, and then back down again. There's a whole section again in the Mood and Mission on that called chanting, the Hare Krishna movement. So I can read just a few statements from there. Kirtan is not part of our movement. Practically, it is our movement. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, nasteva gatiranyata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. Pursuant to this seminal verse, Srila Prabhupada emphasized that Kirtan is our life and our first duty, and that our Krishna consciousness movement is practically based upon music and dancing. Lord Chaitanya's movement of Krishna consciousness is full of dancing and singing about the pastimes of the Lord, about the pastimes of Lord Krishna. By introducing the chanting of the holy names, the Krishna consciousness movement extends Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy everywhere and to all classes of people. Quote, "It is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy that he advises everyone, even Chandalas, Malechas, and Yavanas, to chant the holy names of the Lord. In other words, one who has taken to chanting the holy names, Krishna and Hari, has already received Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. The Lord's request to chant the holy name of Krishna is now extended to everyone in the world through this Krishna consciousness movement. Whoever follows Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions will certainly be purified." There's there's more ecstatic quotes about chanting there. But we see that even this chanting has so much evidence for the importance of it and the significance of it. Whereas when these different claims are made by scientists that there's no life anywhere else in the universe, we've gone to the moon by just showing some like video of something, or they also say, this one that I like is they say, we got these rocks from the moon and they look and are composed of the same things as the rocks in the Nevada desert. It's, it's pretty obvious. How'd you get them? So if they can make so many different claims without any proof, but then there's so much proof for all of the claims made in the Vedic literature. For instance, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu being the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this age of Kali, and giving his instructions for chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra as the Yuga Dharma to go back home, back to Godhead, all throughout the Vedic text, and so many different, and all classes of the Vedas too. There's Smriti and Shruti, and so many different types of Vedic texts. In all of them, there's quotes explaining that Lord Chaitanya will appear in this Kali Yuga. I actually wanted to have a few of them with me, but I forgot to bring it up here. My Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Dhanavir Goswami, in this magazine, Vaishnava Society, Volume 1, the first article in there gives all these verses, maybe 30 or 40 verses from so many different texts that explain very lucidly that Lord Chaitanya will appear and he'll give this chanting of the holy name from all different types of the Vedas. So, and that way, with this system of knowledge being passed down from the Vedas, no one has to be confused. You can just go and fact check anything, and it's already been described there either by the Supreme Personality of Godhead or different perfect living entities like Lord Brahma, who's everything in the universe, he's manufacturing it. Living entities who are free from the propensities to cheat, make mistakes, be illusioned, have imperfect senses. Whereas when we hear these different scientific theories, they change every year, and then sometimes you hear that the scientist who made it like kills himself or gets in some sort of treacherous, scandal and things like this. Or you just look at their life. I mean, from the time they wake up till the time they go to sleep, their breakfast disqualifies them from being a clear-minded person. Because anyone who can think straight, they're not going to eat rotting animals and these kind of things. So we can see who are we going to take information from? The very faulty scientists of the modern day, at least I'm speaking on the ones who give some sort of cheating theory, or personalities like Vyasadeva and all of those who are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So those are just a few points on all of this. Are there any comments, questions, corrections? Yes, Vishnu Chitta Prabhu.
How do we respond to the argument that you could take a telescope or a binocular, a pretty good binocular or half-decent telescope, and look at the moon? And it does look white and look nothing. It doesn't look like there's any vegetation on it or anything like that. What would we reply to something like this?
One thing that Srila Prabhupada told that reporter is that the beings there would be almost invisible. That's one thing to consider. And also, he's saying however many millions of miles he said it was away. I don't know that if you looked at the Earth from that many millions of miles with the telescope, if you'd still see cities and things like this. It's pretty far. It said something like 93 million, or those are two things I could think of. Chandan, Prabhu?
There's an article by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in which he describes that some people see the spiritual master and they separate. All spiritual masters doesn't have worldly knowledge, he only has spiritual knowledge. He says that this is like wrong way of thinking, it's actually offensive way of thinking. That one should accept what is received from the spiritual master in total. And so it's here, or even actually when I heard this, and Srila Prabhupada specifically mentioned there's no gravity. in one place. And when I was studying physics, I was like, whoa, it's kind of weird. But then later I understood, okay, this is a part of the package. It's not this half-hen philosophy of you only accept the back half, not the front half. We accept everything in total, and Srila Prabhupada says that also because, Rupa Goswami is saying, yeah, we accept it, that's all. We accept our acharyas, that's all. I had another point, but I forgot what that was. But yeah, that was one of the main things, that it's not that we reject Srila Prabhupada's moon landing. And we see that now more and more with our own devotees. This whole moon landing thing that India went to, a lot of devotees faulted, and they agreed with it, they agreed with it. And so it goes against what Srila Prabhupada says. Because it's not, and okay, let's say even if it is, we can still say no, it's not. Because we'd rather be dedicated to our acharyas and be wrong than be right with the karmis. Because where did that lead you? Nagati kutopi, you don't know what your next destination is. Okay, you went to the moon, but you don't know where you're going in your next life. What's the use? As Prabhupada said, you don't even know who you are. He was saying that in the class on Saturday. What is the use? You don't even know who you are. What is the use of knowing anything else? What does knowledge mean? Knowledge means first to know who you are. So people think, devotees sometimes think we're being intelligent by conforming to the modern ideas, but it's actually foolishness, looking at it from the perspective, from an understanding of Shastra, that they have nothing to give, and the Guru has everything to give. So
they also go against Krishna's instructions, because he says one of the qualities of a devotee is that they have intelligence, but if you can accept something without any proof, then that's not exactly a sign of intelligence.
Srila Prabhupada made multiple statements also that even if they went to the moon, they wouldn't have seen anything. They can't see anything because they're not qualified to see anything. Then once Srila Prabhupada proposed that they might have landed on Rahu instead of the moon. One thing about these telescopes is that you still have to view it with your eyes, which can't see so many things. You can't see ghosts. Everybody knows ghosts exist, but you can't see it. So even though we might be viewing things with a telescope and it just zooms in, it just magnifies the limitations of the eyes. You still can't see things that you cannot see. So that's some
there's
possible answers to that.
There's those other descriptions too in the Bhagavatam. Whenever demigods come somewhere where there's someone they don't want to be seen by, they just make themselves invisible. I thought there's also other statements too, that one has to become qualified to see them. Atarv, I think, had his hand up.
I think we all know this pastime from the Ramayana where Hanuman jumps 1,000 yojanas to go and get the mountain. Like, he was there to get some herbs, but then because the herbs did not want to be seen, they were invisible to him.
That's a nice point.
Yeah, like the vegetation he's looking for is right in front of him. He can't see it, so he had to take the whole mountain. So. No,
I thought I heard something like that.
yeah,
Maybe we can double check
Bhakti
it
Vikas
later.
Maharaj's Ramayana book, it said that the creepers...
They went into the ground, or somehow they became invisible.
Yeah,
I thought.
they sensed the arrival of an intruder and hid themselves. Yeah.
As quick adding, one evening Srila Prabhupada revealed what he said was his theory that the moon is covered by ice, to explain why the moonshine is so pleasant. Moon rays are very soothing, and we find in many places describing the pleasing effect of the moon. This is because the moon must be covered with ice.
In another spot, he explains, what song, is it
Jai
from Narottam
Parakam.
Das Thakur, who's explaining that the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are more cooling than like thousands of
Jai
moon
Parakam.
rays? And so on that, Srila Prabhupada scientifically explains, based from that song, that the moon must have cool flame. So it's devotional science. He's sticking in the line of the acharyas. He says it's more cooling than thousands of moon rays, so the moon must have cool flame, cooling rays. Was there any other comments? Navani Hoda Prabhu?
in Transcendental Diary, if you like study Prabhupada's life, almost every day in like 1976, he was like talking about the scientists and the cheating scientists, and he actually was getting enlivened to having these type of discussions. But it seems like devotees don't like to have those conversations. But if you actually study Prabhupada's life, he talked a lot about this, like a lot, almost every single day. But my question to you is, I don't know, my experience when I do book distribution, I run into more people who are religious than scientifically minded, you can say. So I wanted to ask you, do you feel like since Prabhupada left the planet, more people are more religious than scientific? And do you feel like the scientific preaching that Prabhupada emphasized is not as necessary now? I just want to think your thoughts on it.
Definitely not. I don't think that's true, because if you go in the schools, they still teach the same thing. Like I asked this one professor, he's got all these awards and whatnot, and I was asking him how does everything come into existence, like the universe and life and all of that? And he just showed me 2 posters that explain the Big Bang. So there's still, and he even said that, he said, yeah, this theory's been around for a while now, since like 1968 or something like that. But it's weird that they don't even update it, especially when other materialistic scientists give so many different things to debunk these different ideas. Sometimes even the people who make the theories say later on that this theory actually, it's not complete or it's not correct. But anyway, the same theories are being taught in school, that there's no God, everything's coming from a big bang, there's just some explosion that comes from nothing and people come out of chemicals. So if anyone goes through school, which everyone's forced to do, then they have to accept these ideas to some degree, and then it just floods over into other fields as well. And as far as more people being religious, that also, as far as I understood, it just depends on where you are. Like, we're here in like a southern part of America, so there's a lot of, they say they're religious, but there's like, whenever they preach to me, they don't say anything about religion. They just say it's okay to do sinful activities. That's all they ever preach to me about. But, yeah, Kalki Prabhu?
I don't know what you're saying, but I forget the name of it exactly. There's one book that was like released within the past 10 years. Anyways, pretty much the premise of the book is just like, whatever, scientific proof, scientific book, just that pretty much that like, the general thing that like man is like more civilized now than he's ever been, and then just like analyzing the different phases of like history. And that book was like glorified by Barack Obama and was it Bill Gates, and it's like a bestseller and everything. And then the guy went on to like publish like so many other books, as like whatever New York Times best. So anyway, just making the point, and then that book is also like referred to by a lot of like whatever big scientists and PhDs and things. But definitely like, we're probably not so aware of it because we're kind of out of touch with that field. But there's definitely like a lot of like whatever like scientific achievements and advancements and like papers going on that are like accepted by like mainstream society and things like that. I don't, as far as like more or less, I don't know, but that's definitely like going on strong still, like that whole atheism.
Yeah. Even some of the students, we had a college program once, and we were talking about the Big Bang to the college students. They were saying, we actually don't care about the Big Bang. We don't believe in it so much. But then right afterwards, they're saying all these other things that are founded on these ideas, like the Big Bang. Saying, yeah, we don't believe in the Big Bang and this and that, but, we just discovered ice on this one planet, so there might have been life on this one planet millions of years ago, even though ours is the only one that has life on it. All these ideas are like coming from these fundamental things, Big Bang, life comes from chemicals, this and that. One other problem with this that's cheating science, or one term that's used for it is scientism, because it's like a religion just based on belief. But this scientism is that it's an anartha, because it's convincing people that you can categorize everything, or you can understand everything with your senses. But then there's that verse, Atav Shri Krishna namadi nabhaved grayam indriyai sevan mukhehi jivado swayam evasparatyada. That the material senses, contaminated material senses, they can never understand Krishna's qualities, form, pastime, anything about this transcendental science. But when one surrenders to Krishna or serves him which begins with the jiva, the tongue, then, chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasadam, engaging in devotional service, then Krishna himself, he agrees to reveal that which is beyond the person's limited understanding. Not just that, okay, God is there and I'm going to make him appear in my lab or in my pocket or whatever they say. So in that way, it gets in the way of people even being able to understand spiritual subject matters. Mm-hmm.
Just one quick comment, but it just speaking on like scientism, it's always important to like mention just like anyways people will argue with that, but a lot of like this whole scientism and just really emphasizing the physical senses, that's very recent. And if you see like a lot of like cultures and whatever, people will say they're like primitive, but like a lot of like cultures and societies, they did like acknowledge that like there was like a presiding moon deity, and then from that like moon deity, then they would they would build temples and such, and they had like an understanding that like whatever, like Chandra, they didn't say Chandra, but they have like different names and things, that because of like Chandra, that the vegetables are growing and things like that, and then they attributed other things also like anyways, but different things. But that was like people had that understanding. And then even with like astrology, not even like looking at Vedic astrology, but just like Western Hellenistic astrology. I mean, people like had connections like whatever, like on a more subtle level than they do now, and like understood that and went to that like on a day-to-day basis. So anyways, it's just one quick thing.
Yeah, it's pretty common sense too that you can see whatever you look at in the world, there's some personality is causing things to happen. So to think that there's no persons behind everything's just randomly happening, it's like a strange new idea. But like you're saying, there's many cultures that accept there's some personality behind each different facet of the material world, whether it's the sunlight or the moon or the water or the air we're breathing. Anything from the Matajis? All right, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sorry, I didn't see you had.
No problem.
You pointed over there. Well, I mean, we could have him here, but I didn't see him.
We should go all through. Who first? Oh, you were.